Hey guys, welcome to BlendedTV. I'm your host, Dave Rafuse, and tonight on BlendedTV, we are joined by Melanie Gallagher and Augie Westhaver. We are going to talk about a new program that they have coming to Blended Athletics called the First Pull Weightlifting Club. Melanie is an NCCP Level 1 Olympic lifting coach. She is a two-time national level Olympic lifter and is also a CrossFit Level 1 coach. Augie has his NCCP Level 1. He's also working currently on getting his Level 2. He's a Catalyst Athletics Level 1 Olympic lifting coach. He has his Agatsu kettlebell cert and is also certified in precision nutrition. That is a mouthful of certs between the two of you.
Mostly Augie.
Mostly Augie.
I'm bookish.
So, this new program,
Yeah.
tell me a little bit about it.
Okay, so Augie and I have been working together now for a few months. Augie's been helping coach in the gym. And most of our weightlifters that come in through Blended are, I think the youngest is probably, like dedicated weightlifter is probably about 20 years old, which is great. We range from the age of 20 to about 42, I think. Not including yourselves. But we, Augie and I have always talked about how important it is for youth to be exposed to this sport because it's really changed our lives a lot and we see a lot of the benefits that weightlifting brings to us and anyone 20 and up. So we've been talking quite a bit about starting a youth weightlifting program and we kind of decided a few things. One of them is that it has to be accessible if we do it. And in order to make it accessible, we have to apply for funding. And in order to apply for funding, you have to have a program in place. So we thought the best way to do this would be to start a program here where we take youth from the ages basically from 8 to 18 years old, anyone who's never touched a barbell before, introduce them to the sport of weightlifting. So basically teach them the skills through drills about the snatch and the clean and jerk. Keep it all very light. Well, we're talking about like a dowel or a PVC pipe. But over the 7 weeks, teach them the snatch, teach them the clean, teach them the jerk. And then hopefully be creating some interest and at least some awareness and knowledge about the sport of weightlifting. So that if there are some kids that want to stick with it, then we have a platform there to move forward and we can hopefully apply for some funding to make it more accessible to everybody.
So just for our viewers at home, at this exact point in the show, hopefully we'll be able to cut to an example of what clean and jerk and the snatch looks like. Ultimately, this is the first time in Nova Scotia that anyone has tried to bring a youth Olympic weightlifting program to the masses.
Yeah,
I think so.
I mean, recently, certainly, 25 years ago when the sport was more developed in the province, there were folks working with kids, but not in a very long time has there been an effort to have a concerted youth program. And indeed, the sport has only had a renaissance in the past 3 years. So, yeah, that's certainly the first time.
And I think there are coaches working with youth across Nova Scotia, whether that's, just youth that come because their parents are lifting or that do CrossFit, that have an interest in weightlifting and have started to try it a little bit. But I think this is, for us, in the last 25 years, the first program that's specific to youth who have never weightlifted before.
So you're 5.5 months pregnant now, Mel.
Yeah.
Is the whole objective of this to prepare yourself to train your kid to become the best Olympic lifter in the world?
We would like to have this program
perfected
by the time that my son is 5 years old, so that he can just jump right on board.
But on a serious note, why now?
The time is right. So over the past, I would say 3, maybe 4 years, weightlifting in Nova Scotia has sort of taken off, mostly thanks to CrossFit. And as Mel was saying, we have a lot of lifters who are older, so people in their 20s and 30s who are interested. Some, like myself, who are in our 40s, which is fantastic. And they've done a lot to make the sport sort of grow regionally. But the future of this sport is really with young kids. So there'll be lots of interest among adults and people our age. But if we have an interest in seeing the sport flourish and develop, we'll have to see young kids get involved in order to move the envelope forward.
And in other countries where Olympic lifting is more like popular, that's the norm, right? Like they're starting at a really young age.
Yeah.
So there's something I think that a lot of parents, especially here in Nova Scotia, we hear it with parents that are looking for sport-specific training. But one of the issues that they have is the whole perception that lifting weights is bad for kids,
Mm-hmm.
and that's not the case, right?
No, so there's, I mean, the programming that we'll be following is purely technique. So these are kids that will be lifting dowels and PVC pipes to learn drills rather than pushing heavy weights before they're ready. And we're following something called the long-term athlete development model, which is supported by the Canadian Weightlifting Federation, and it's guidelines for age-appropriate training practices. So concerns about sort of injury or it being too soon, they're not well-founded.
And who's the program for exactly? So like, who are we asking to come and do this?
So it's really for anyone. Ideally, it's someone who's never lifted before, but that doesn't mean that if you have a child who, if you're involved in weightlifting or you're involved in CrossFit and they've moved the barbell around, like, yes, of course. But if they are a seasoned lifter, then it's probably going to be a little bit too slow for them because, like Augie and I said, it's going to be super, super basic skills and learning with really, really lightweight, less than a pound, lightweight, moving a barbell. But as far as what kid it's for anyone. Anyone. So whether or not, like, this is what I love, and we have talked about this, that we love about weightlifting and the sport of weightlifting, is that it is actually one sport that can be for any person. So whether or not, if you're a team player, right, it's a sport for you because in a weightlifting gym, you're usually lifting with a group of people. And it's the kind of sport that requires feedback, whether that's from a coach or from the friend that you're lifting with. So a lot of times we've created the environment here in our weightlifting gym that people are helpful with one another, they encourage one another, they give feedback to one another. So it feels very much like a team sport. At the same time, it's an individual sport because it's just you against you. So it's you against your head, it's you against your own body, challenging yourself in those ways. So I found it, I was someone who played team sports my whole life, and I really excelled at them, but I never reached my peak because I hid behind my team. And that's something that I know now, that I might have been kind of aware of back then, but I was maybe a little bit in denial. When I found weightlifting, there's no hiding, it's just you. And that really helped me to grow as an athlete, to put myself out there, to challenge myself, and to push myself in ways mentally and then physically that I hadn't before. So it's great for team players, but then it's also good for the individual who's looking to refine things about their power, their technique, coordination, agility, mobility, things like that. So if you're a loner, or if you're a team player, it's for you, right? And then it's for all shapes and sizes as well. So weightlifting, big, small.
Doesn't matter.
In the sport of weightlifting, the men have 8 categories, the women now have 8 categories. So, and those are all weight categories that you lift in. So you can see anyone from a 5'2" male, like CJ Cummings, who weighs 150 pounds, to a guy that weighs over 300 pounds. And they both do the same sport, they both do the same lifts. You can find them in the same gym working out together. So there's no ideal body type for this sport, so it's literally for everybody.
Yeah. So I mean, you've already just explained there kind of if you had had Olympic lifting when you were younger, it would have changed your entire outlook of what you did from a sports perspective.
100%.
What's Olympic lifting done for you, Augie?
So I came to this very late in my 40s, but it's really opened up a completely new understanding of what my body's capable of doing. Like it allowed me to develop a kind of confidence and a capacity to move in the world that I never had prior to this. So, I mean, it's for individuals, the folks who are sort of individual players and team players, and for any body size. But it's also brilliant for helping us realize like what our abilities are, because it's just you working against like gravity, and it's humbling, but it's also quite refreshing to see, man, I can do that. So it's a confidence builder.
So if you guys were to list the top 3 benefits for a youth lifter for getting involved in lifting, what would those top 3 be?
Confidence.
Confidence being number 1?
For me, I'd say kind of a connection between your mind and your body. So, that kind of body awareness, that can be translated into any other sport.
Sure.
But it's really a huge focus of weightlifting.
And fun.
Yeah,
Would be
big
the third
fun.
one. Yeah, and
I
fun.
think there's a percent, like, I think that's what a lot of people miss, is the fact that being in a facility like Blended Athletics when Olympic lifting's happening, that environment's
It's fun.
it's fun, it's motivating, it's a powerful spot to be watching someone move weight around.
Yeah, I think what it teaches you, which is really important, is that it's okay to fail, because when you're weightlifting, so much of it is like repetition and failure in a way. It's never failure because you're always learning, but you might not be making a lift all of the time. You're most likely not doing every movement properly all of the time. So there's always learning involved. But if you're someone that's really, really good at sports, like I could score a lot of goals in soccer, and people might ignore all the other things that I don't do, like I'm not getting back on defense and things like that, right? So I don't have to focus on the things that I don't do as well, right? But in this sport, it's all very much there in front of you. But as coaches, we spend a lot of our time, it's not so much teaching the sport, but it's teaching people to deal with the fact that yes, this is tough, and yes, you have to practice, and yes, you're gonna fail, but it's okay. This is the sport. So it teaches you to accept failure in a way that I found other sports didn't really introduce me to.
It fosters a kind of stick-to-itiveness.
Yeah.
Like if
Yeah.
you catch the bug, it's like you
Keep
just stick,
working.
you learn to stick with it.
And then you can learn to laugh at yourself. And then you can learn to, it's also something that like the small victories are the things that you have to celebrate in weightlifting. Because you don't have those huge victories that often. You might PR or lift heavyweight once every few months, right? But it's the small things that you have to celebrate. And that can be applied to life. When you learn to appreciate the smaller things in the gym and then you go out into your everyday life, that's a really beautiful thing to be able to learn to appreciate the little things. Like, I might not have done that well in this book report, but I did better than last time, and my grammar was better, and things like that. So I think that kind of lens is really helpful.
Sounds like this is a life-changing experience for kids.
Changed my life.
Changed my life. Yeah.
So it's changed both your life, and it can change your kids' lives. What about from a safety perspective? You very briefly mentioned the program, Augie, that you guys follow. It's part of the Nova Scotia Weightlifting Association. Tell us a little bit about that.
So the LTAD model is it's simply age-specific training that allows for loading and practice to sort of be in line with the chronological and the biological developmental points that a child or person is in. So we're not pushing the development of strength before a child is in a position to actually develop strength, right? So at younger ages, it's simply movement. So if we stay in line with those biological markers of development, then we're not in a position where a child is going to be injured or put in a place where they shouldn't be.
And I think this is really important too for kids who play multiple sports. So if your child is in hockey, if your child is in track and field, if your child's in gymnastics or any like sport that recruits power and is a power sport, they need to be strong eventually to do it. They're going to end up in a gym anyway, right? And they're going to end up lifting weights anyway. Most NHL players do power cleans or some sort of clean, some sort of squat. You know, most high-level athletes are doing that.
Any football player, any basketball player,
exactly, are doing that. Learning at a young age the proper technique of that movement is really important, so that when they're 15 years old and they're ready to go to the gym with their friends and train for their sport, they're doing it properly, right? They're recruiting the right muscles, they're using the right parts of their body, and they have more confidence in those scenarios. So even if you're using it as a supplement for other sports, learning how to do it with coaches that teach weightlifting is probably more beneficial to you than just figuring it out on your own, or having, you know, your hockey coach who doesn't have a background in weightlifting getting you to power clean.
And I mean, we have a little diagram to show everyone in comparison to other sports how safe it is, and it's quite astonishing, like the difference between, say, like soccer and weightlifting. And I think that the perception maybe isn't quite what the stats show.
No, the injury rate in Olympic lifting is minuscule in comparison to any kind of team contact sport. So it's, in fact, training in a gym doing like weightlifting, like using machines, is more likely to injure you than weightlifting, the sport.
So one of the first things you learn is how to fail, because you're going to fail.
How to drop a bar.
How to drop a bar without hurting yourself. You know, and that kind of knowledge is what protects you from being injured. So if a lift isn't going properly, you know, part of the very first thing we're going to do is holding a bar overhead, drop it, right? Getting comfortable dropping a bar. And this is the kind of gym where you're allowed to drop a bar. In fact, you're encouraged to drop a bar.
Dropping bars is fun.
Yeah, and it's fun, you know, so whether it's, you know, sometimes we have to do this with adults, like drop a bar, like it's okay, because they grew up, or they experience lifting in a place where they're not allowed to, and that's what makes it unsafe. But one of the first things we'll teach these youth is how to stay safe by not putting your body in precarious position because you are too scared to drop the bar.
I can't wait for these youth to learn how to drop a bar and end up in like another gym, dropping a bar, thinking it's just normal.
I know, my coach
Just getting yelled at by the other gym owners.
Yeah.
So with regards to the First Pull Weightlifting program, when does it start?
So we're going to start in November. We're going to run it here at Blended Athletics every Sunday for 7 weeks. We haven't nailed down a time yet. We're hoping for around, most of the feedback that we've had from parents is noon is a good time. So we have to do some shuffling around a little bit. But we're going to also send out a survey to the Blended Athletics community asking what is the best time for anyone who's planning on sending their kid.
It went out yesterday, guys. So if you haven't done the survey, please answer the survey.
And by all means, if you want to, you can respond to this Facebook Live thread and just say, interested, this is a great time for me, you know. But we're looking at Sundays definitely, starting the first Sunday in November. I believe that's the 6th, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And it will run for 7 weeks. So one of our goals is to have Blended Athletics is hosting the weightlifting provincials here on November 26th. So we're hoping to take, our plan is to take the youth that come to our weightlifting and reserve seats at the front.
And I can confirm that those seats have been reserved.
Perfect. So there's seats reserved already at the front so that they get a firsthand look at what a weightlifting competition looks like with people who are maybe 5, 6, 10, 20 years older than them. 30 in some cases.
55, 40.
45, whatever.
And what about cost?
It's free. It's absolutely free. So one of the main things, I mean, and this is why in other countries this sport is done by so many more people and participated with youth participate in it because it's accessible, right? So if you go to Eastern Europe, you know, the gym membership isn't necessarily $140 a month. Like that's asking a bit much, especially with parents who send their kids to hockey, figure skating, all these sports that are extremely, extremely expensive. So that's why we know we're totally willing to volunteer our time to come in and teach some youth how to weightlift. And then hopefully, if they're interested in it after the 7 weeks, we can try and get some funding so that we can subsidize it, so that it's still cheaper for them to carry on in the sport. That's the goal.
And finally, what's like a session, just to give some parents an idea, what would a session look like?
Can I grab a PVC pipe?
Sure.
Yeah. Augie, you can start talking and I'll grab
It would be skills and drills. So Mel is going to grab a PVC pipe, and we'll walk the kids through how to move that bar above their head into a snatch position, how to pull from the floor.
So this is the bar that we start with and that we're going to use.
And this weighs basically
This is
nothing.
Yeah, basically nothing. But this is basically all you need to learn, right? So if they go home and they still want to practice, a broomstick.
A broomstick is going to be fun.
Right? So yeah, the skills and drills. So we'll work on the snatch and the clean and jerk. Basically, the pull, the catch, the squat, all the things that lead up and build into what the snatch and what the clean and jerk is.
Awesome.
So if you've ever been to a Mel's Bells class, where we literally just work on from the floor to the knee or from the knee to the hip, the overhead position, an overhead squat, similar to that.
So is there anything that we're missing? What else do these parents need to know?
Well, so one of the things that we know about youth and sports is that early specialization is often problematic for them, right? So it's generally wise to have kids involved in a range of sporting activities, sort of kind of a multi-sport approach. And long-term, what that means is that kids end up focusing on a sport that they like. Us bringing weightlifting forward in this way is going to create another menu item, basically, for kids who have athletic aspirations to sort of develop their physical literacy in a different way. So it increases the range of options that are available to kids.
Yeah, I agree.
Guys, this is a no-brainer. We're talking about a 7-week program, absolutely free. It's going to run Sundays for kids what age again?
Basically 8 to 18.
8 to 18.
New to weightlifting. We're not
So-
going to say no to you.
And
Yeah.
there's a cap to how many people you guys are going to be able to manage.
So we're gonna take 20 kids at the start. If there's 40 kids who are interested, we'll do another 7-week free session.
So we'll figure it out.
We'll get them all in.
Yeah, we'll get
You
them
heard
all.
it, guys. This is a must. If you are interested in this, how do they get a hold of you guys to register?
So you can email me at melanie@blendedathletics.com. That's probably the best way. Let me know that you have an interest, how many youth you're bringing, and we will stay involved. So on Blended Athletics Facebook page, and if we do reach our cap by tomorrow or the next day, we'll let everybody know, and then we'll let everybody know when the next session is.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Awesome. That is quite the deal. Before we sign off, Augie, show everyone what you're holding. That's it. This is new at Blended. Come by it, $10 after taxes. Thanks so much, guys, for coming in to talk about the new
Thanks very much.
program. Super excited about it. I think it's going to be an awesome time.
Yeah.
We will keep everyone updated from here.
Awesome.
Thanks for tuning in, guys. We'll see you next Thursday night at 9 p.m.